Aging doesn't begin with wrinkles or gray hair. It starts, as engineer Alexander Mikulin discovered, at a much deeper level, with the stagnation of blood within your own body, a process that silently takes root in your legs. This isn't merely the passage of time, it's a systemic breakdown that announces itself first as a profound, dull heaviness in your legs, escalating to leaden limbs by day's end and throbbing feet. This sensation is not just discomfort, it is a precise, silent signal of the slow, inevitable decline of vital bodily systems, manifesting long before the true threat is recognized. Alexander Mikulin, an aviation engineer, not a physician, approached the human body as a complex yet perfect mechanism. He saw aging not as an unavoidable fate, but as a systemic failure that could be prevented at its root, rather than treated after its onset. Mikulin held an unwavering conviction: as long as blood circulates correctly and unimpeded, a person lives a full, active life. The crucial point is to never allow blood stagnation, especially in the legs, our body's most distant physiological outpost. If this outpost loses its effective function, the entire circulatory system begins to falter. While the medical world sought miraculous pills and complex treatments, Mikulin sought fundamental levers to restore natural processes. He developed a system centered on a single exercise, performed regularly, predominantly in the evening, as a remarkably effective tool to not only halt but reverse the cascade of decline. It required no gym memberships, personal trainers, expensive equipment, or complex techniques. All that was needed were your own heels and the fundamental omnipresent force of gravity. In an era where hypodynamia, lack of movement, has become a silent, pervasive norm, and a sedentary lifestyle imperceptibly and relentlessly diminishes us, Mikulin's method stands as a direct challenge to modern degradation. If, as he asserted, old age begins in the legs, then it is from the legs that we must begin to stop it. This entire counter-aging battle commences with one simple, rhythmic movement, repeated evening after evening. Decline truly begins at the foundation, our legs. Individuals often fail to recognize how gradually and imperceptibly they lose this vital connection to the ground. Initially, they simply sit more. Then they experience unexplainable fatigue. Eventually, with surprising clarity, they realize that even a familiar flight of stairs has become an insurmountable climb, and a simple walk in the park an exhausting marathon. This is not laziness or mere age-related change, it is stagnation. Old age does not burst into our lives like a storm. It slowly and methodically creeps upwards from below, using the legs as its staging ground to capture the entire organism. Our legs are our support, our first and most critical line of defense. When the veins in the legs, working against gravity, cease to efficiently return blood to the heart, blood begins to pool, increasing its viscosity and the hydrostatic pressure within the vessels. This heavy blood, laden with metabolic byproducts and deficient in oxygen, not only creates a sensation of heaviness, but also slows cellular metabolism. As blood becomes heavy, the entire body slowly and inevitably declines, like a lamp starved of energy, its light growing steadily dimmer. Mikulin, the engineer, clearly articulated, "The heart is a powerful motor, the main pump of our circulatory system, but it requires auxiliary pumps to assist its work. Nature strategically placed these auxiliary pumps in our legs, within the calf muscles." We often mistakenly believe that aging primarily concerns the brain or heart, overlooking peripheral systems. However, the heart operates within a closed circuit. If venous blood from the lower floors of our body does not return completely, the entire circulatory system inevitably declines, not instantly, but surely. Impaired venous outflow first manifests as varicose veins, followed by painful cramps, and then an increased risk of blood clots. Only later comes that pervasive fatigue that no amount of sleep can conquer, and that heaviness that no inspiration can dispel. Aging is not an isolated process, but a chain reaction, and according to Mikulin, its first spark ignites in the tiny capillaries of our feet, where microcirculatory failure begins. Mikulin did not wait for official science to confirm his engineering insights and clinical observations. He simply rose onto his toes, then sharply dropped his heels, striking them against the floor. Once, twice, 30 times, 60 times. This was how he began his conscious fight, not against the consequences of established diseases, but against their root cause, blood stagnation. He deeply understood that by restoring effective blood movement from below, from the body's most distant points, life and energy could be returned upwards to vital organs. Blood is not just a biological fluid, it is the river of our life energy, carrying oxygen and nutrients to every cell. If this river does not circulate freely, the entire body ages. Eyes dull, memory weakens, skin loses elasticity and dries. But once the legs function correctly, activating their auxiliary pumps, the entire body awakens, receiving the necessary influx of fresh, oxygenated blood. This is why human aging is determined not by the date on a passport, but by the condition and functionality of the legs. The legs are not just limbs, they are the antennae of our life force, our energy system. If they are immersed in the gloom of stagnation and hypodynamia, the entire body ceases to radiate light and vital energy. Michelin knew, whoever controls blood movement controls their time and their health. Therefore, his first step towards longevity was not a step forward, but a rhythmic downward strike of his heels against the floor. Because that is precisely how the path back to a full life begins. The primary adversary of health and youth is stagnation. Aging is not so much the wear and tear of organs and tissues as it is the internal bogging down of the organism. Everything that lacks adequate movement accumulates in the body, not only blood and lymph, but also toxins, metabolic byproducts, and sometimes even unexpressed emotions, leaving their imprint on the physical body. It is stagnation that makes a person old, tired, and apathetic, even if chronologically young. Michelin perceived the body as a complex system of pipelines. If a blockage begins in the lower circuits of this system, meaning the legs, then a failure inevitably occurs higher up in the brain and heart. While blood flows, the body lives. When it slows and stops, it slowly dies while standing. In the legs, the venous system daily wages a fierce battle against gravity, constantly working against a fundamental law of physics. Every day spent without adequate movement, without activating the muscle pump, is a small but tangible defeat in this battle. Blood fills the vessels as water floods a basement, and in this basement, life itself sours. First, a sensation of heaviness appears. Then edema develops as fluid leaks from vessels into tissues, followed by the appearance of unsightly spider veins on the skin. This is not merely a cosmetic defect, it is a loud SOS signal, the body's cry for help. Blood is trapped below, and when the foundation decays, the light on the upper floors dims. The brain is deprived of oxygen and nutrients, the heart works under chronic overload, and the liver struggles to cleanse the body of toxins. Stagnation is a tasteless, odorless poison. It does not openly cause pain, it simply exists, slowly destroying the system. It makes steps heavy and the body indifferent and apathetic. Michelin clearly saw, overcoming this stagnation means restoring the body's natural energy and vitality, but not through grueling fitness or running, which can be traumatic for joints and the heart in older age, but through pure, efficient mechanics. The body is a machine, and it can be shaken in a way that initiates and optimizes fluid circulation. He did not wait for vessels to reach an irreversible state of destruction. He prevented the destruction itself. Every evening, he rhythmically struck his heels against the floor, creating a specific vibrational wave that effectively propelled venous blood upwards against gravity. This was not sport. It was precise engineering. Stagnation loves stillness and hates rhythm. Therefore, rhythmic microshocks become a kind of hammer that shatters its structure. They dislodge what has adhered to vessel walls, residual blood, clumped red blood cells, microclots, and restore the body's internal flow, just as ice melts in spring and a river comes alive again, clearing itself of obstructions. It is pointless to expend energy treating consequences if the very cause of their occurrence can be eliminated. This is why Michelin's method is not athletic but vital. It is not about the external form of the body, but about the vital internal movement. This movement begins precisely where stagnation ends, in the legs, because that is where old age awaits its prey. And he struck the floor day after day, moving away from it. Doctors typically spoke of the heart as the main pump, physiologists about blood pressure. But Michelin, as an engineer, looked deeper, at the entire system. He sought not what was already working, but what could help the system work more efficiently. He found the solution not in pills or complex exercise machines, but in the very design of the human body. He clearly understood that blood is not always capable of returning to the heart on its own, especially from the leg veins, where gravity is its constant and powerful adversary. He then asked a simple engineering question. If the main pump cannot handle the full load, why not activate an auxiliary peripheral one? Thus was born the principle he called the vibrational pump. Legs are not just supports for the body, they are vertical levers capable of actively propelling blood upwards. But to activate them, only one element is needed: a regular, rhythmic impulse. Not strenuous running, not heavy squats, but a short, springing strike of the heels against the floor. Rising onto his toes by only about 1 centimeter, he would sharply drop his heels, creating a controlled shock wave. This wave, propagating through the venous system, effectively pushed venous blood upwards, breaking through stagnations and activating the work of venous valves. Each such strike is a clear command to the blood: move, don't stop. The technique was ingenious in its simplicity, yet behind this simplicity lay a deep physical and physiological calculation. The force of the strike applied to the venous system is nothing other than the weight of your own body. The frequency of execution, 30 to 60 times per minute. Duration, just 1 to 2 minutes. But the effect of such targeted action is comparable to a 30-minute walk, because the goal here is not calorie expenditure, but directed mechanical fluid movement. Just as gentle, rhythmic shaking helps to quickly empty a bottle of viscous liquid, so too do heel strikes create periodic pressure that expels venous blood upwards. He knew it is not as important how much you move as how precisely you do it, how targeted your action is. Many people walk for hours, but blood still accumulates in their legs due to an insufficient venous pump. He spent only 2 minutes and activated this pump, because precise mechanics and understanding of physiology are always more effective than a habit devoid of deep meaning. He believed that the human body is a high-precision structure, and any structure has an optimal point of force application. The heels are this point, because it is through them that the axis of gravity passes. This means it is through them that its force can be directed to your benefit, not to your detriment. That is why his method works. It does not fight the body or torment it. It cooperates with it, transforming the legs into an auxiliary pump, movement into a healing rhythm, and life into a continuous healthy flow. Upon hearing the word exercise, one instinctively prepares for significant effort, sweat, and overcoming oneself and one's weaknesses. But Mikulin's method fundamentally breaks this stereotype. It requires not physical strength, but continuous regularity. This is precisely what makes it so powerful and effective. The secret lies not in intensity, but in a constant, unwavering rhythm. The secret is to do little but always, he said. Just 60 heel strikes against the floor. It sounds almost trivial, like a child's game. But this tiny daily ritual can radically change circulation throughout the entire body. Every evening before bed, he repeated this movement, which by its rhythm resembled a heartbeat. Up, down, impulse, pause. Not for sport, not for a beautiful figure, but for the preservation and prolongation of an active life. This was not a workout in the usual sense, but rather an act of support and optimization for the circulatory system. Because it is precisely in the evening, when the body prepares for rest, that blood becomes more sluggish, its movement slows. It begins to accumulate in the lower part of the body due to gravity and reduced muscle activity. If it is not stimulated, it will remain there until morning, creating ideal conditions for stagnation. Mikulin knew. Night is either a time of complete restoration and regeneration, or a time of slow, imperceptible destruction of the organism. The outcome of this dilemma is decided in the last minutes of the day. This is why he never missed an evening. He did not question whether he had the desire or the mood. He knew, if there is time to go to bed, there is also 1 minute to tap his heels on the floor. The body responds very quickly and gratefully to this rhythm. One day of performance is almost nothing. A week is already the beginning of forming a new, beneficial habit. A month is already a tangible result at the level of well-being. But only if it is done every day. Not when remembered or desired, but when it becomes an integral part of the daily routine. He treated it like personal hygiene, like brushing teeth or washing hands, like a safety measure without which one can survive but cannot remain truly healthy. It is in this habit, in this unwavering regularity that the entire power of the method lies. Not in the number of repetitions, not in maximum load, not in showing heroism, but in steadfastness and constancy. Because old age does not come like an avalanche, it creeps in millimeter by millimeter, imperceptibly. Therefore, the defense against it must also be the same, slow, but relentless, methodical. Thus, vibrogymnastics becomes not just a movement, but a kind of vow to oneself, every evening, always without exception. Because the body pays not for one-time feats, but for consistency and care. Most of us perceive Earth's gravity as an inevitable given, a force that constantly pulls us down, making the body heavy and tiring muscles and joints. But Mikulin saw in it not an enemy, but a powerful natural force that could and should be turned to one's advantage. Gravity is not an enemy if one knows how to interact with it and how to use its mechanical principles. He understood that it is the main obstacle preventing venous blood from rising from the legs to the heart. Every vessel in our legs works against the laws of physics, and any upward movement of blood is already a small but important victory. But Mikulin did not fight gravity directly. He integrated into this law, using it for his purpose. He used gravity as a tool. When a person sharply drops their heels to the floor, the weight of their body is converted into a shock wave. This wave, directed from bottom to top, pushes blood against the flow of gravity, but, paradoxically, with its very help. This is the engineering paradox of his method, to use a force to overcome its own resistance. Not exhausting running, not climbing stairs, but simply the weight of one's own body directed into rhythmic movement. He believed it was foolish to wage war with the laws of nature. It was much smarter and more effective to make them your allies. Just as water moves along a riverbed, not arguing with the landscape, but using its slope and curves, so too can blood easily return if the right impulse is created for it at the right moment. The body is not just a mass, it is a complex lever controlled by the mind. And striking the heels is not just a gesture, but a precisely calculated point of force application. Not for an external effect, but for an internal, deep one. He taught not to strain, but to delve into the mechanics of life. Instead of effort, a correct trajectory of movement. Instead of struggle, calculation. In this approach lies his entire philosophy. Do not fight nature, move with it, but intelligently. A simple heel tap becomes a powerful action that nullifies the heaviness accumulated throughout the day, especially if you have been sitting, standing, or walking little for a long time. This impulse returns the body to its natural vertical flow. If done daily, gravity ceases to be a burden that saps energy. It becomes a source of energy, because your body's weight is also fuel. You just need to channel it correctly. Mikulin was not an adherent of sports fanaticism. He did not believe in running to exhaustion, in tormenting the body for sculpted muscles, in blindly following trendy, excessive activity. He understood perfectly. With age, the body does not tolerate excessive loads. It requires wise, conscious decisions and gentle care. The body is not an arena for setting records, but a complex biological system that needs intelligent assistance to maintain balance. This is why his exercise does not engage significant muscle strength, does not cause shortness of breath or pain. It requires no flexibility, endurance, or certainly heroism. It does not challenge the body, it unloads it. This is the principle of minimum effort for maximum result. By rising onto your toes and striking your heels against the floor, you are not testing your strength. You are engaging a natural mechanism. It's like pressing a pump start button or pulling a lever to make the system work efficiently. It is more akin to starting a car engine than to an exhausting warm-up. I am not training, I am performing maintenance on my body, Mikulin used to say. In this, his approach fundamentally differs from everything we are accustomed to considering healthcare. While some built muscles, he restored circulation. While others sculpted an ideal physique, he restarted the flows of life within the body. Here, brute force is not important, but precision and timeliness of action. 1 centimeter of elevation on the toes, and blood flows upward. One missed evening, and stagnation begins to return. He treated this exercise as a daily engineering procedure, not for the body, for life. Because if blood does not return to the heart, the body fades. But if it flows, it reawakens and fills with energy. This is why he believed that everyone should know and perform this movement, not for eternal youth, but for survival and active longevity in a world where everyone sits. We no longer live in an era of hunting and gathering, where movement was a natural part of life. We live in an era of chairs, sofas, and screens. Therefore, his method, requiring nothing but the floor beneath your feet and 1 minute of time, became a weapon against civilizational degradation. No mats, no memberships, just you, the floor, and 1 minute. Not a workout, a ritual of restoration. Not sport, salvation. This was his quiet revolution in the approach to health. We tend to consider the heart the main hero of the circulatory system, a strong, resilient, practically eternal motor. Yet even the most reliable motor will inevitably overheat and fail if it bears the entire workload alone. Alexander McCoolin understood. The heart is not a slave, it needs help. Otherwise, it will retaliate with failures that can be life-threatening. Venous outflow is what the heart struggles with alone, especially from the lower extremities. It easily pushes blood downwards through the arteries, utilizing the power of its musculature. But to ascend back to the heart, blood must overcome the force of gravity. If the legs, with their auxiliary muscle pumps, do not assist, the heart is forced to work for 3, performing an uncharacteristic function of venous return. This is a hidden, constant overload that imperceptibly wears out our main organ over years. As a result, arterial blood pressure rises, myocardial fatigue increases, and arrhythmias develop. And often these problems arise not from stress, but from poor body engineering, from the inefficient functioning of the peripheral venous system. This is precisely why Michelin created a method where the heart is given the opportunity to rest, while the legs, acting as auxiliary pumps, perform their part of the work. Periodic strikes of the heels against the floor create an internal vibration that literally propels blood upwards through the veins, significantly easing the task for the heart muscle. This is not fitness, not cardio, not aerobics. It is the activation of an internal lifting mechanism embedded in our body by nature. He wrote, "If you do not help your heart, you betray it, even when you are at complete rest." He knew that most heart attacks occur not during periods of stress and physical activity, but precisely in a state of rest, when blood stagnates, when vessels are overfilled, when the venous network has already succumbed to the onslaught of gravity. A typical evening, a typical night, and the heart alone battles a stagnant mass of blood. His method is a kind of prosthesis for the heart, but without surgical intervention. One simple mechanical movement, and the load is redistributed, relieving excessive pressure from the myocardium. The heart sighs with relief, blood pressure returns to normal, pulse stabilizes. This is not theory, it is the practice of survival. Especially in older age, when every heartbeat is already a victory. It is then that one should not train it to exhaustion, but lighten its load. Like a faithful assistant who takes on part of the burden at the right moment, the legs become an ally of the heart, not a silent ballast. That is the essence. Not to make the heartbeat stronger, but to stop exhausting it. And one can start with something simple. 1 minute, 1 rhythm, and 1 reliable ally in your own heels. When the veins in the legs fail to cope with their task of pushing blood upwards, a chain reaction of destructive processes is initiated. The first to appear is varicose veins, not exclusively as a cosmetic defect, but as a loud cry of despair from vessels no longer able to effectively propel blood upwards. Then come constant swelling, a sensation of heaviness, tingling, and even cramps. Later, thrombi, which are not merely dangerous but potentially fatal, as they can detach and block important vessels leading to the heart or lungs. All of this is a direct consequence of inaction, the absence of adequate mechanical support for venous outflow. Blood stagnation is an invitation to death, signed by your own feet, Michelin wrote. He did not wait for obvious symptoms to appear and disease to develop. He placed a barrier at the very beginning of the problem. In the evening, when a person returns home, their veins are already battling the consequences of the day. Long hours spent sitting in a chair, in transport, or simply standing without active movement all leave their destructive mark. If the system is not shaken, it will begin to decay from within due to stagnation and toxin accumulation. This is why heel strikes are needed precisely at this time. This is not just recovery after daily exertion, it is active catastrophe prevention. With each strike, a short but powerful vibrational wave is launched, capable of releasing excessive hydrostatic pressure in the veins. This wave breaks up nascent blood clots, preventing them from coagulating and turning into a deadly trap that can block vessels. He asserted, "A thrombus does not appear out of nowhere. It needs a swamp, an environment for formation. My task is to drain this swamp every day." Thus, a simple action became an invisible shield against what was not yet visible to the eye. Many learn about the problem when it is too late, when a thrombus has detached, when a vein is blocked, when amputation is no longer a threat, but a verdict. Mikulin wanted people to live in such a way that this never happened at all. He appealed not to fear, but to the instinct of self-preservation and a rational approach to one's own body. Just 60 springing strikes at the end of the day, and blood freely flows through its channels again. Vessels receive much-needed rest, venous valves awaken and restore their functionality. Life continues to flow, not stagnate. This is not a cure for varicose veins. This is a refusal to accept it as a given. It is active prevention. There is no need to wait for pain and obvious symptoms. You need to tap your heels on the floor before it comes. If you make this a habit, your legs will thank you, silently, but with every step that becomes lighter and more confident. At first glance, what connection could there be between legs and the brain? They seem like entirely different systems of the body. But Mikulin, with his engineering approach, understood everything in the body is interconnected at a systemic level. If blood does not effectively rise upwards, then the brain inevitably starves. Our mind is nourished not only by books and information, but primarily by oxygen and nutrients delivered by blood. If oxygenated blood does not reach the head in sufficient volume, no intellectual effort, no stimulating preparations will save one from mental fog, reduced concentration, and impaired memory. Brain fog, forgetfulness, slow thinking, decreased cognitive function. This is not always, and not only, age. Very often, it is a direct result of blood stagnation in the lower extremities. When the legs cease to function as effective auxiliary pumps, the brain suffers among the first. It becomes sluggish, like a lamp with low voltage in the circuit. No motivation, no external stimuli will make it work at full capacity until the veins in the legs begin to perform their function of returning blood. This is why Mikulin's method was aimed not only at the physical health of the body, but also at mental clarity, at the rejuvenation of cognitive functions. Every evening, performing rhythmic heel vibrations, he initiated enhanced blood circulation upwards to the head. This was a powerful signal for the entire body. Time to come alive. The brain received a fresh portion of oxygenated blood, as if a bright light had been switched on in a long darkened room. Vision cleared, heavy thoughts dissipated, a sense of internal lightness and sharpness of thought returned. He wrote, "Brain vessels age not from time, but from the inaction of the legs, from insufficient blood flow." This connection overturned conventional medical logic, which often concentrates on treating symptoms directly. After all, treating the brain with pills is pointless if nutrients simply do not reach it due to poor circulation. Therefore, the path to rejuvenating the mind and preserving cognitive abilities begins from below, where the heart needs support and the vessels need a shake and activation. The legs become a springboard for energy that nourishes the entire nervous system. Especially with age, when metabolism slows down and fatigue becomes chronic. He did not fight the symptoms of aging, he eliminated their root cause. And so, at 80, he possessed a clear mind, a firm memory, and the ability to think like an engineer. This was not a miracle, not a gift of nature. It was the result of daily discipline and conscious care for his legs. Mikulin proved, clarity of consciousness begins with the purity of blood flow, and blood flow is movement. And this movement depends only on you, on your choice, not on a doctor, not on medicines, not on circumstances, just you, standing on the floor and the sound of heels striking the ground. This is how life returns, to the brain, to thoughts, to oneself. What is the cost of 1 minute? For most of us, it is almost nothing, an insignificant period of time that we easily spend on social media or checking the news. But Mikulin viewed time completely differently. A minute invested in one's own health returns years of full, active life. He knew that a magic pill for aging does not exist. That is an illusion. But there is a simple, yet powerful ritual capable of slowing its progression and significantly improving the quality of life. Just 60 rhythmic heel strikes, once a day. Not in the morning, when we are in a hurry and caught up in activity, not during the day when we are distracted by affairs and obligations, but in the evening, when the body is already tired, when blood has stagnated, when the daily cycle has reached its logical conclusion. This is not a burden on the body, it is a purposeful transition into a mode of recovery and regeneration. It's like turning off the lights before bed or locking the front door, concluding the day. One rhythmic ritual, and the body receives a signal that you have taken care of it, prepared it for nocturnal renewal. Those who take care of themselves in the evening awaken refreshed, full of strength and energy. 1 minute spent not on a newsfeed, but on oneself, on one's internal movement, not for ostentatious health or external effect, but for vital internal flow. This habit can become stronger than any diet, any exercise program, because nutrition is undoubtedly important, but blood is more important. It nourishes absolutely all cells and tissues. If its path is not interrupted, life is not interrupted. He repeated, aging is not an instantaneous blow, it is a delayed consequence of inaction, a cumulative effect. You will not notice a drastic difference in one evening or even a week, but after a year, you will move differently, with an ease you did not have before. After 2, you will think more clearly, with greater concentration. And after 10 years, you will live as many of your peers no longer can, maintaining activity and clarity of mind. All this, thanks to 1 minute. Thanks to the sound of heels touching the floor. Thanks to the rhythm in which blood remembers that its path lies upward against gravity. This is why Mikulin's method is not just a theory, it is an invaluable legacy of action. He did not just invent an exercise, he left us a simple, accessible technology for prolonging an active, full life. And it begins not in a hospital, not with a diagnosis, not with pain. It begins with a simple choice you make every day. You stand, you move, you live, and every evening, you again choose movement over stagnation. To not surrender to age, but to go upwards. From heels to the heart, from the body to clarity of mind, from 1 minute to a whole decade of active life.